Hello and welcome. I am Anna Deming-Davis, co-founding director of Southwest Dance Theatre, and today I'm joined by choreographer, coach, artist, and creator Ella Maigandaya Mesma. So you are a woman with many, many strings to her bow. I've listed some, but there are more, and we will come on to them in due course. But first, let's talk dance. So your achievements have been quite heroic, performing with Russell Malafont, breaking convention, the Olympics opening ceremony, and the Cholmondeley, and then choreographing commissions for Sadler's Wells, Little Mel, and the International Women's Conference, among many others. And now you have your own company, the Ella Mesma Company. Let's start at the beginning. Do you remember when you first started to get a thing for dance?
Yes, it was actually in Bristol. I went to Cotton School, and I basically started. I always drew, and I was drawing artists. Sorry, I was drawing dancers. I was like asking all my friends to kind of like do these different dancey poses and stuff. And then eventually I was like, oh no, this fascination with dancers because I want to be one. Yeah, so that was kind of the real. But I think I was 17, so I was like, oh, it's too late. I can't do this. And yeah, but I did, and here I am
Yeah.
now. And my path, I didn't actually go to dance school until I was 25. So whilst I did take that step, so I did an AS level in dance, I still didn't, I was still like, it had in my head, oh, I can't, it's too late, blah, 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 until I was 25. And then at 25, I went to dance school and had a career that I absolutely love and I'm so satisfied with.
So from 17, you were getting your first itch to dance, and then you went straight on to do an AS in dance.
So the AS level was at Cotton. It was 1 year. It was intense because I'd not done GCSE or anything before. I did ballet. I remember I joined a ballet. There was like a ballet thing that was kind of connected to it. And I remember kind of walking to this place and having to wear tights. And, it was just such a strange world. But I actually did. I really did enjoy the ballet. And I still do continue to, whilst I feel very much like I'm a visitor or a guest in the ballet world, I do really love it. I really love to do it. And, it feels like a beautiful game of everything about it. Before the AS dance, about age 14, I went to a Latin club. It was a friend of mine in Bristol. Her dad's partner was Brazilian and so had set up these Latin nights. And so I went and I was becoming interested in salsa from 14. And then I sort of secretly loved samba and used to listen to a specific kind of music from Salvador called Ashe in my house. I didn't tell my friends. It was like a very hobby.
I have to say, I find all that salsa kind of stuff completely irresistible. I can't not
Right.
dance. Just makes you want
Yeah,
to spin. And but it's
it's so
interesting to hear you say, you've done really valuable work in so many different areas of dance, and you still talk like you feel like an imposter in the ballet world. That sounds, yeah.
and that's probably, I know I have a quite deeply ingrained imposter syndrome in general. So I still feel like a guest most places, but very, very happy to be in all of these spaces and places. And I would say that's kind of my mission as a company, is to make people feel welcome and help people see that they are very much invited into these spaces, and also kind of break down those barriers. Because as someone that, I growing up, I didn't grow up around like a real performance. I didn't have that performance kind of background. And so it was something that I didn't think I was invited into. And so to break down those kind of barriers around audiences and bring audiences who might not go to the theatre into the theatre, that's sort of my mission.
So you've done an awful lot of different things in awful lot of different ways in all corners of the globe. What are some of the achievements you feel most proud of?
Oh, I think right now, so I'm in New York right now, kind of following this intuition around Graham technique has always been. So my first actual dance sort of training was just after university. I apprenticed. So I auditioned for a company would not have expected to get in. I actually think I might have broken a toe in the audition. Yeah, but somehow I must have shown some kind of potential because I got into the company, and that was with someone called Merville Jones, who was a founder of Phoenix. So it was very Graham, you know, every morning we started with Graham on the floor. And for me, that was always what contemporary was, because that's what I started with, you know. And then I went to train with RJC, who are a company in Leeds, reggae, jazz, contemporary, and the same. We had this, it was kind of a mixture of Graham and Horton, and it was just wonderful. So when I went to dance school and we didn't do Graham and we didn't do Horton, I was like, what is this strange Cunningham thing with lines? And my body never kind of felt like it was in that style. And so here I am, basically following an intuition. And that feels really exciting and brave to be in this big city that some call the concrete jungle, right? Just kind of following my intuition around myself and my identity as a dancer, and kind of ingraining a little bit more the training that I really want to embed in my practice and be able to bring that back to my work in the UK. So that feels I feel very proud of that. And I suppose even achievements like, so, you know, being in New York, I've come here quite a lot of times. The first one was with a Lisa Ullman scholarship to train in salsa on two and breaking. So my love for salsa just continued to grow, and I met someone from New York called Angel Ortiz, bless his soul, because he is now resting in power. But so that was a wonderful time. And then I came back again for various projects, but that included with Russell Malafont, we performed at the Joyce Theatre in New York. I brought my own work here to the International Women's Dance Conference. But so yeah, probably a lot of those sorts of moments, and even like because after working with Merville Jones, that company kind of folded, and then I went off to Brazil, and I basically had a mission that I wanted to be a persista, which is this kind of really coveted role in Carnival. And I did. And I, you know, many people said I was the first non-Brazilian to ever just rock up. This was in 2006. So it was quite a long time ago. And yeah, I stayed for 3 months. I lived in Brazil. I trained. I lived in Rio in a beautiful, tiny, tiny little house in Jardim Botânico. And I got in and I trained every day, and it was just, that was an amazing, and you know, to parade on the streets of Rio, that was an amazing accomplishment. So yeah, actually, like, you know, there's been these big moments, these big shows. I did love the Little Amal project. That was just such a beautiful, and it kind of, you know, in terms of the whole concept behind it really kind of like pulled on my heartstrings. That was beautiful. But I think a lot of them have been those moments of like taking the leap of faith. I also made a solo for Breaking Convention, and that was coming straight out of dance school. And it was really scary because it was me on my own. It was about a real issue really close to my heart. But I think all those moments of faith where I've kind of like jumped, you know, and not knowing what's on the other side, those for me are the most magic moments of being in the not knowing, and also holding strong of like, no, this is what I need to do. This is my truth.
Yeah, I think, I mean, you talk about these as the moments that you're most proud of, and I think there seems to be a thread running through that you take that leap of faith, and it just brings out the best in you. And also you working on things that really pull at your heartstrings, that feel really close to you, that are important to you. It seems to be.
Yeah,
I guess it's obvious, isn't it? You work on something that's important to you. Probably work out best, but yeah.
And also I think that the leap of faith, I've always felt that there's a reward on the other side, you know, like there's magic in doing things that are scary, and of course with moderation and so on, and like but I think there's a lot of magic in going for things that we would love. Yeah.
And so you're in New York at the moment, and you're doing some training in your home contemporary style, Graham. It sounds like a bit of an investment in self again, which is I came across you through some workshops where you were helping others to do the same thing. You had these wonderful if I remember them feeling such a joyful and sort of almost therapeutic experience. And you let me turn up with my little baby girl who was only a few months old, if that, really, at the time, sort of popping between buggy and sling, and it was just wonderful. Could you tell us a little bit about some of the background to those workshops, where
Sure,
they came
yeah.
from?
So actually kind of linking back to me saying about imposter syndrome. So because I'd come to dance so late, I kind of always just felt like I wasn't quite at home. You know, I was this visitor that possibly wasn't quite welcome. And so I started to kind of look more into this sort of psychology side of, I think dance is a wonderful place to meet yourself and to really, you know, it shows you all of your shit as well as all of your magic. It kind of really shows up the beliefs and the stuff getting in the way. And so I started to kind of research into that, and I came across someone called William Whitecloud, who teaches intuition, and everything that he said just resonated with me. And so I kind of really stepped onto that path. And so that's the work that I coach in. I like to coach creatives and all around intuition and how to work with intuition in what you do, so that you can make decisions, so that you can really know your truth, and so you can be in that unknown space, the magic of those kind of being in the I don't know, but I know it's true. And so those workshops kind of came out of that work. I went on I've always done yoga, and actually my first yoga qualification was a gift. I got a scholarship to study yoga, which I'm so grateful to Abby Hoffman, Dr. Abby Hoffman was the person that invited me. But I kind of, on that journey, I got to do a second yoga teacher training, and I studied Kundalini for a year. And Kundalini like boosts your intuition times 100 again. So I was having all these kind of intuitive downloads, and it was around these workshops that would help people, but it was particularly women, actually, to kind of come back home to themselves and come back into their bodies, so that they can show up in all aspects of life, but particularly, you know, as a creative, of like, how do I bring my whole self online, and kind of what are these missing parts? So it might be like work around boundaries, it might be work around fear and survival, and actually also, like, I would say particularly global majority women as well, kind of being of global majority, and just noticing how much there is to work on in terms of what we're told in the world about who we are and how much we belong and how much we are possible. And I wanted to create these workshops where we could look at all of that stuff and do some healing. I'm like, in terms of healing, I think this is such an interesting concept. I think we heal ourselves. I don't think we need to necessarily be healed by another person, but that we can kind of do that healing so we can show up as whole and realize that we are fixed. We're already fixed. You know, there's nothing we need to do to fix ourselves. And it's about just bringing all the different parts of ourselves back online and coming back home to the beauty that we already carry within us.
Yeah, it's easy to forget. You get pulled in lots of different directions and left to feel a little inadequate in every way. Yeah. Yeah, and I remember those being really special. So are these workshops that you still work on, or are these things that,
Yeah, so I tend to do them online, actually. I'm going to do a retreat to Mexico next year, where we will do those, like the kind of in-person stuff. But now I have a 9-month program called the God X Path, which is kind of more the practical, the kind of the work in group, the using intuitive tools. And then I have a shorter course, which is 9 weeks, called Embodied Alchemy, which is more about the movement practices and kind of self-exploration. And one, Embodied Alchemy, you kind of just do it in your own time. We do have group sessions, but they're more about just, you know, sharing and asking questions, whereas the God X Path is more like one-to-one, and then kind of deep group work, as well as having the bits that you work on yourself. And for me, it's been like, you know, for me doing it's been such a beautiful transformation to get to know myself, actually.
Wonderful. And I've also, when you have been in Bristol, I've been lucky enough to catch some of the early viewings of some of your performance work and your choreographic work. Can you tell us, have you got any of that kind of work?
Yes. Yeah, I'm loving the shows right now. Can I tell you them all? Because they're all so exciting.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm currently working on a piece with Akim Toussaint, who's based in Leeds, which is kind of more my home than Bristol nowadays. I'm from Bristol, but I mostly live in the north. And we have been making a show called Okan, which is it's a Yoruban word meaning oneness. And we're kind of exploring some Thomas Presto, who is a amazing dancer who runs a company called Tabanka Dance Ensemble based in Norway, basically said that salsa is a martial dance. And that really stayed in my head. And I mentioned it to Akeem, and we started just playing in the studio of this concept of like, could we use a salsa as a partner dance that's also for self-defense, and you know, that can be this, have this strength and this kind of aggression to it. And that's grown into this beautiful project.
Wow.
So we chose the word Okan because, and so my lineage on my mother's side is Nigerian, is Yoruban, and that's why we kind of found this particular word Okan, but it means oneness, and it can also mean the kind of many states of the heart. So it could be like soft-hearted, it could be hard-hearted, it could be stubborn-hearted, it could be big-hearted, and we wanted to explore that kind of idea of relationship and relating, and how many states we can be, and then how do we hold ourselves whole in relationship. So and that's kind of links into this concept of who are we when we're outside of society and outside of gender, who are we, and this idea of like, that's the oneness, you know, that when we hold ourselves in the oneness, we can be in these beautiful relationships. But when we kind of start playing out the roles of society and kind of trying to have these power dynamics within a relationship, that's when we lose our balance. So that piece is super exciting. We will premiere a duet version of it next year in the spring. And
where will
then
that be?
That will be
And then
probably
looking for tickets.
all over. We'll come to Bristol for sure. Yeah.
Oh,
So
good. Keep us
we're still
posted.
kind of assembling it right now. So we know we've got London, we know we've got Leeds. We're looking at Bristol, Newcastle, and a few other places. Yeah, super exciting. And then I've got the Rainbow Butterfly, which I would love to bring to Bristol, which is a children's show. And it's all about similar concepts, really, but it's about a non-binary child called Majar, who wants to be a butterfly. And they go on this amazing adventure and they fly off to the moon. And it's done on aerial silks. And I got an artist to paint the silks, and they're beautiful.
I think I saw some pictures from that on Insta. I was like, oh, I wish I could take Eden. My little girl's Eden.
I'd love to see Eden there. And we do, it's a lot of fun. So it's for 3 to 6 year olds. We get them all up on stage. They go on an adventure together. We all, it's really fun. It's a beautiful piece. Yeah. So that. And then I'm making 2 new shows as well, which maybe I shouldn't talk about until they're created. So I'm gonna hold it, even though I'm set.
I know how you feel when you really want to talk about something, but you're not sure exactly. Yeah, but a lot of this, you talk a lot about a very sort of a balanced approach and a sort of caring approach to how you work within dance. And you also have your own dance company now, Ella Mesma Company. Tell us a little bit about what was the trigger to start your own.
So it was a lot about that. Whilst I was doing all these amazing, having these amazing opportunities, traveling around the world with other companies, I never really felt like there was the care within those companies. I had a really shit time often. And I kind of thought, actually, no, I wanted to create a space where it's also about nice human beings, and there's not this ego that we very often have in the dance world, and there's care at the heart of it. And so I kind of started to really research that, of like, well, what does care look like? And because I think it's a hard space, because we're required to put someone on, you're putting somebody into a performative space. How do you make sure that you're not making them perform, that you're not putting them into, for example, past experiences that they don't want to relive? Like, there's so many layers. And I suppose it links into kind of the work, the Godex path and the embodied alchemy. Like, how can I support someone to be whole and to have a healing experience, or for dance to be a healing ritual, rather than I'm getting paid money, so I've got to just perform all my trauma essentially and then go home, which I had felt in a lot of companies that was kind of the mentality. And so it's been a journey. Like, now we're getting there. We have like a kind of access needs, and we send things out to the whole team so that everyone is kind of on board with this is how we work. And And yeah, it's a journey. I think we can still get it wrong, and we can still it's that kind of finding the balance of how do you enable all of that and also still create something beautiful. But what I'm finding is the shows we make are beautiful because the people are so invested, and that because it's a safe space, more magic happens.
I know what I've seen. I certainly felt that way. And it's interesting the way you talk about getting a dancer to relive their trauma and then pack them off home. And there are times when I, as someone in the theatre, I'm watching something and the tragedy unfolds and it ends in disaster. And then we all start clapping, and I just want to crawl under the chairs and cry. There is something sometimes a little bit jarring about the way it all.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to make more joyful work now as well. Like I did Ladylike, which I made 2014.
Yeah.
2019. I mean, it had joy, but there was a point when I was like, okay, now we just need the joy, and actually I want to archive, so I'd like to bring that show back to kind of film it and archive it. And again, all of the dancers within it have said that it was a really beautiful healing experience. So I'm really glad for that. But I do think there's these layers, and that now, particularly, as we've gone through lockdown and we've gone through all the kind of difficult things in the world right now, I feel like now more than ever we need joy and we need celebration. And we need dance.
Right? We need joy, we need dance, we need healing. And you, as well as all this other work you've been doing, you are actually author of your own book, Journal to Joy.
Yes, and I do it every morning. I kind of wrote it. I wrote it for the world, but I wrote it first because I was like, this is the practice that I'm doing every day, and it kind of holds me to show up and not bring my shit to a space. Because I think it's really hard. Like we're also processing and we're also living in this crazy fast world, and it's so how to kind of be able to show up and support other people. Well, I have to do deep work, and so essentially Journal to Joy is the deep work that I do every morning. It doesn't take long. It's like, I would say about 11 minutes it takes me every morning. But it does, it completely transforms who I am and how I show up in the world. So I'm so glad I've written that book, and now I'm writing a second book, which is more of a book about the pelvic bowl, the sacred bowl. And all my beautiful journeyings with that.
All right, well, watch this space for when that comes out then. And there's more though, isn't there? Because you've had your podcast series.
Yes, and it's out soon. The season 7. We're on season 7. So we are going to review at the end of season 7. We're going to review how many listeners have we had, and what's the kind of, where have we got to? Because that's 70 episodes that we've recorded, which is a beautiful number, right? But so it's me and my Bessie, Ama Rouge, and we kind of we themed it around, so it's unlearning, it is creativity, and it's the idea of powering up, like what helps us to power up. And we've just had the best time interviewing amazing humans and kind of various topics, from colorism to creativity as a tool for revolution we're looking at the moment, the power of language, and what's the other thing we've just done? Mental health awareness, which again, I think in these times it's so important that we raise awareness and that we start looking at this, because so many of us are not having a good time. And so, how can we support people to live a life of joy instead of a life of struggle and hardship and pain?
Take care of all of you, not just your vital staff.
I've been really thinking about this recently in terms of that kind of like this idea of the wheel of your life, that it should be every area that we're experiencing joy from, not just like, not just that, oh, I have a great time at work and then I go home and everything else is not good. That how can we really find that balance in our whole lives? And I think that that as a concept for me is kind of really what I want us to strive for. And what I hope Power Up podcast kind of provides is like just little bites and tasters to go, oh yeah, and this and this and this, and just start doing our own research, our own deep diving.
You have so many things on the go, you know, not just sort of creatively and professionally, you're going in so many directions, but you're every time I speak to you in a new country or a new continent. You've given us some kind of clues as to how you keep it all to go together, but is it hard?
I would say no, actually, because I work with intuition, and because I don't have to know how. Yeah, so I talk a lot about this idea of creative tension, that we so often we kind of like, we can't handle this psychologically, we can't handle the not knowing, we have to know, and that's the reality of life, right? We don't know the future. And so I think for me, once I nailed that, not having to know, now I can live with, you know, the great unknowing, the great creative tension that I'm creating in my life. And yeah, I have a real sense of where I'm going and the things that I love. I know the places that really kind of give me high vibes, and the things that give me high vibes. And then I feel like there's just constant miracles, like every day, of like, wow, and I get to do this now, and I get to do this now. And, you know, again, I think it's the rewards for leaning into the fear.
Wonderful, wonderful parting message. I was going to prompt you for if you got any last little tips, nuggets of wisdom you would like to leave viewers with, listeners with.
Dance every day. I actually, like, if I'm in a mood, I will do my journaling, and then I will dance to shift the energy. I think there's so much, you know, we hold so many emotions in the body, so get those emotions in motion every single day. Do your journaling, get to nature, and know your values. I think this thing for me that's helped me so much, knowing what my values are and showing up for those, like choosing that I will say no to something if it doesn't align with my values, because I know who I am and I know what I want to create.
Brilliant. I couldn't put it better. Especially dance every day. I don't know how people get through life when they don't. Yeah.
So grateful. I feel like dance has saved my life, honestly.
Oh, brilliant.